Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Colin Mathis, I'm the gallery director here, and I want to welcome you to the first of our three different artist talks that are going to feature your professors, the full-time faculty, the full-time art faculty here at Parkside. And so today we're going to hear from Tom Berenz and Lindsay Larsen. And before they come up, I want to mention on October 9th at the exact same time and place will be Trenton Mailer and Lisa Barber. And on November 6th, same time, same place, will be Daniel Martin and Carrie Waters. All right, but yeah, today we'll hear from Tom Berenz and Lindsay Larsen, and I think we'll start with Tom, who is Associate Professor of Painting and Drawing at Parkside.
Well, thank you. So welcome, everyone. Yeah, as Colin mentioned, I'm Tom Berenz. I teach painting, drawing, and foundations. So we have about a half hour to talk, and then Lindsay's going to go, and then I think we're going to field some questions. I'm going to take you back to some of my early work, and I'm going to talk about sort of the development of my work over the last 20 years. I'm going to talk about what I was thinking in terms of strategizing, in terms of exhibitions, how I got my work out there, and also talk about my work. So this is from 2007. In 2007, this is the year that I received an MA, so a Master's of Arts from Northern Illinois in painting. I received a BFA from UW Oshkosh in graphic design and painting. I took one semester off, painted a high school in Eagle River during that break, and then I moved to Northern Illinois. My primary focus as an undergrad, I was really interested in painting, so that's why I went on to graduate school. This is 6 different paintings. At this time, I was painting in real time, responding to natural disasters happening in the country. I was making a painting a day, grabbing an image off the internet and making that painting. So as I move through all of this work, this is just a section of the work. There's hundreds of paintings just based on this series, and then I'm gonna jump. So in 2007, I'm living in DeKalb, Illinois, and I really haven't sort of shown my work at all. As an undergrad, I never showed my work outside the institution, and I'm trying to discover how to do that. And the best way for me was to participate in any regional show, any local show. So that's a really great place to start. For you all in Racine, Kenosha, there's Milwaukee, there's Chicago, there's a lot of opportunities. But you have to normally submit to a call, an open call, submit the work. And one nice thing about working, having an exhibition locally is you can just go drop the work off. Currently, I have to crate up work, ship it across the world, and it's a whole different thing. But in order to get to that point to where I am now, I needed to learn a lot of the logistical things about how to communicate with a gallery director, how to submit a proposal, how to drop off my work, how to prepare it for display, how to give them the proper, all the proper information. So these are just 3 individual panels, 24 by 24 inches, and I just butted them up. So this is a triptych. At that time, I wasn't convinced one painting could discuss the narrative I was interested in. After Northern Illinois, I was asked to go back to UW Oshkosh to teach full-time for 1-year sabbatical replacement. It was a great opportunity, so I jumped at it. I just got a phone call from a previous professor of mine who then became chair, and they needed someone to cover. And it was sort of an emergency situation. I said, I'll take it. So I moved from Northern Illinois to Oshkosh. I'm like 2-3 years out of undergrad, and I'm back at that institution teaching those same students. So some of my previous classmates are now people in my class. I was very young. And I sort of shifted and I started making these flooded sort of parking lots, dealerships of of cars, as if they just came off the line. I actually purchased die-cast cars, like 6 inches, submerged them, and is making paintings from life. I typically will work, 2-3 years, and then kind of shift. Figure out that series, maybe get bored with it, and then make a shift in my work. And so this is 2009. UW-Oshkosh asked me to stay on an additional year, so I taught there full-time for 1 more year. I knew I wanted to go back to graduate school. I was 3 credits away from an MFA at Northern Illinois, but that program really didn't provide me with what I wanted, and I wanted more time. So I was just open to restarting the program. So during my search, I was very open to just restart the MFA program because I wanted that more time, the time. I wasn't interested in pursuing painting for a degree. I was interested in knowledge and learning. So questioning the idea of a home, the fragility of infrastructure, this sort of back and forth battle and struggle between man and nature. They became these sort of central piles of information or of architecture. Still really based on imagery that I was finding online, but I started becoming more interested in kind of pushing the idea of abstraction within the paintings. So at this time I'm applying to graduate school. I finally decide on going to Madison, and that's where I got my MFA. I'm starting to try to push my work out there. So along with these exhibitions, I'm submitting my work to publications and things, and I got selected to be in New American Paintings. At this time, New American Paintings was like the thing to be in. This is kind of before Instagram, kind of before people looked online for art, and people were still seeing things in the physical. And from here, it really opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of galleries. A few shots of my MFA thesis exhibition. All of these paintings at this time are becoming more autobiographical, dealing with personal issues, socio-political, environmental, and it became a way for me to discuss the self in paintings. So there's a lot of symbolism and metaphor within the painting. So just as an example, the school bus. This is the first time, so I was thinking this is the first time I'm not going to be affiliated with an institution. I'm leaving graduate school, and I thought about a crushed bus. A couple more shots. I was fortunate enough to be included in New American Paintings 2 more times. There's an MFA publication, and then additionally that same year I was selected to be in another publication, and again these were sort of launching moments for people starting to contact me. Right out of graduate school, I got a position as a visiting assistant professor at Beloit College. So Beloit was about an hour commute from Madison, so I just drove down to Beloit to teach there full-time for 1 year. Galleries started contacting me based on just being in this publication. And so these 2 galleries, one was in Dallas, one in San Francisco, I started sort of shipping my work out. So I'm going from thinking about regional, local exhibitions, now starting to ship work out to commercial galleries. During this time, my studio setup was not the best. I had a 1-bedroom apartment in Madison, and I just converted my bedroom into my studio, took my bed out of my bedroom, kind of had a studio apartment, if you will. So I had to do what I had to do. Still making the same sort of larger 5-6 foot paintings in a relatively small space. So that was the 1 year, and then I got this position here in 2012. Moved to Milwaukee. If some of you were at Keith's talk last week, I actually got a studio with him in that space. This is just a studio shot. I'm very messy. And I'm thinking about this work as these sort of emotional tumblers of information. There's this backdrop of a landscape, but then I inject different sort of imagery, different meaning within the imagery to come up with a very kind of dense narrative. Just a detail shot of how these paintings look. I think a lot of times in reproduction, paintings, the handling of the paint, the physicality of the paint, the mark of the paint gets lost. And that's what the majority of us see work on now, is a screen. And we forget that painting is really about a mark and seeing the hand. And there's different types of applications there, from squeezing oil paint to spray paint to drips. I use a lot of tape, taping different things off, and I'm just building a different language and multiple languages of painting within one painting. Another studio shot. Same place. So I decided to build out my garage in my backyard. So this is just a few shots of me closing off my garage door and putting in a subfloor, heating, cooling system, track lighting. So now my studio is in my backyard. So it works really well. So I went from paying $500 a month to rent a studio, now basically free, and it's now in my backyard. So with this job, sometimes I only can get an hour a day in the studio. And then you bring in a commute, then it puts you at a half hour a day, and then you don't even want to go make work because it's not worth it. So I really like to go out early in the morning with coffee, paint for a while, and then when I come home from work for a little bit longer. And that's doable and manageable because of it just being in my backyard. So I'm starting to think about, so this list, probably hard to see, I can barely see it, kind of regional solo exhibitions at universities. I'm having 2-3 shows a year, so solo presentations of my work, and then I'm moving work out to sort of commercial galleries around the country. Instagram's a really important part of being and getting discovered. People don't really look at websites that much anymore. Everyone goes on to Instagram. So students, I really highly encourage you to have an Instagram. I'm sure all of you have an Instagram account, but really just think about maybe there's just an art account. Most of my contacts come through Instagram. It's not a formal email. Email is kind of a thing of the past, and it's all Instagram. People see my work on Instagram, want to show my work on Instagram, and message me on Instagram. So it's kind of, for me, where the action's been at for the last 5 years. A few more galleries that have contacted me that I've showed with, that I work with, COAs in Montreal, Parlor Galleries in New Jersey, and then I worked for a short time with Tori Folliard in Milwaukee. This is an exhibition shot of a show that I did in Madison. So again, just to give you an idea, this painting on the right is called Cut. It's about a childhood memory of how I cut my brother's finger off with an axe. Accidentally, yes. But he deserved it. Starting to have some art historical references. There's some very obvious Picasso references, Philip Guston references, different storytelling. The painting on the right, instead of deer hunting, my family used to just drive around and look at deer, and we just spot them. But this was a case where a very large buck came out of the woods, and it got shot in the hind leg, and it was on its last steps, but then still trying to mount a doe. And it was this really powerful moment. I won the Mary Nohl Fellowship in 2017. So this is just one painting. I've been in the Wisconsin Triennial, which happens in Madison every 3 years. And then, yeah, my paintings go places. So this painting was shown at both, the painting in top left was shown at, for the Mary Nohl Fellowship, then shown at the Wisconsin Triennial, even though that's a different painting, and then was purchased by a motel in Milwaukee. So more and more galleries are contacting me. Again, I think it's about building or starting momentum. It's about showing regionally, locally, getting your work out there and having people contact you. And if I'm interested in working with a gallery, I just send them a quick Instagram message. A lot of times I wait for them to like one of my images, and then I'll just reach out very informally. And most of the time it's like, yeah, ship me some work. I'm still in the sort of testing different galleries out. Some of these galleries I've had really great relationships with, and then others I'll ship them out some work, nothing moves, and then they'll ship me back the work. So there's galleries from Denmark, Australia, Palm Springs, California, Vail, Colorado, Johannesburg, South Africa, Philadelphia, Spain, LA. So these galleries, all but one, I'm kind of in conversation with. There's certain galleries I'll ship out, 5, 6 paintings a couple times a year. Others, pretty quiet. There's just some markets where your work will sell and some where the work won't sell. I've been doing art fairs, mainly in New York and in Miami, with a gallery out of Provincetown, Massachusetts. They'll take my work, typically 5, 6, 7 paintings twice a year, and they'll take my work to an art fair. And then you can see sort of where I'm currently sort of showing and thinking about. So in the span of, from 15 years ago, I was showing sort of in my community. Now, New York, Miami, LA, Denmark, Australia, New Jersey, Australia, Provincetown, Philadelphia, Vail, Australia, Taiwan, Denmark, South Korea. So that's been over the last roughly year. During the pandemic, I started making a series called a Sitter Series. Probably made 50 of these paintings. They kind of start all looking the same, and maybe that was in response to every day kind of feeling like the same, not being able to move. I was just thinking of one figure on a chair, just sort of sitting there, with sort of a loss of hope, a loss of direction, and trying to capture maybe where, society as a whole, where we were at. This is another one of my paintings. This is in the Third Ward, Sweet Green, Sweet Green, I believe. They purchased the painting. It's meant to be overwhelming. I was contacted by a dealer in Asia that wanted to buy everything I touched. So this dealer bought every single painting that I had in my studio and wanted, I think it was 12 to 15 paintings a month. And so I went into just pure production mode. I followed the money, and I began making really bad paintings just to sell. And so I'm still trying to dig out of that. So that relationship's really quieted down, and I'm in the moment in my studio trying to pull away from that. This is just a few process shots of one of the paintings that's currently up in the exhibition. A lot of times the paintings will start with an idea, have a few references, and I draw on the canvas until I find the form, find the composition, find what I'm looking for. And it slowly kind of crystallizes over the course of roughly a couple weeks to a month. And this is kind of where my studio is at right now. Thinking about the Sitter series, sort of modernist concerns. I'm thinking about sort of splicing fragmented spaces, figuration, abstraction, and I'm just trying to move forward. So I'm in this kind of strange moment within my studio of trying to leave some things behind, take what I have learned and move forward. So I'm kind of in a tricky spot in my studio, but the only way to get through it is to work. So I just keep making work and trying to discover the next idea, the next series through the activity of painting. I think that's all I have. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Larsen. I'm an assistant professor of graphic design, and I also teach printmaking and photography here. Just a little bit about myself, I guess, and my background first. I graduated with my bachelor's from the University of Texas in Arlington in 2012. And then I worked for a couple of years in the industry in like advertising, marketing and advertising. I hated it. So that really propelled me back into school again. What I didn't like about it was the answers, solutions. And I'm just like, but what if we think about this a little bit harder? I went back to school in 2015 and got my master's, my Master of Fine Arts in Intermedia Studio and Graphic Design. And I graduated in 2018 from there. After I graduated, we moved to the Midwest. I'm originally from Texas. So for the first time, kind of like, in a new place with new people, just like thrown out there, like fish in, well, I guess like a fish in water would be comfortable in this situation, but this is anything but that. So yeah, I wanted to talk today about some of the concepts, overarching concepts of my work. And I think this is a really good relationship. We've got, like, you know, Tom has a very specific practice. I have a very specific practice. Like, I think we all have different ways of thinking about the work that we're making, and we all have different ways of, like, kind of operating in the world and, like, sharing our work. So I think this will be a nice addition to that. That's me. I would generally describe my practice as an artist as being something, you know, it's a process of what, you know, I'm always in search of something that I know I will never find. There's always that, you know, dissonance between the things that I'm trying to do, the things that I make, and there's always going to be that slippage. And I'll talk about that slippage in a couple of different ways in terms of the work that I make and my relationships with the work that I make and people I give it to. But generally speaking, I think that what I'm always trying to contend with is myself, and the capital T, capital S, like the self. Who am I? What's my purpose? What is the meaning of life? Do you all ask those questions to yourself too? Cool. Why does it matter? What does it mean to be a human being, to exist in the world in the current time that I'm currently alive? Yeah, what does all that mean? So I make art, or I make things, I guess, to try to reconcile and contend with that conflict between what is, which is the outside, the world, other people, physical, you know, the environment, and with what is not, which is the self, human consciousness, right? There's always that, like, you know, maybe an idea that you think of abstractly in your head never quite finds the right materiality or physical form, or something that you're trying to say or talk about with somebody else doesn't quite translate, or they interpret it in a different way. An example I like to kind of think about a lot is like a sunset, for example. There's the sun, and it is setting, and it creates, you know, the light diffuses in the atmosphere, right? And it goes through clouds, and it's beautiful, right? So the what is part is the real reality of what's happening. The sun is setting. The what is not, the not real part of it, the made up part of it, is the notion that that is beautiful to our perception. So, you know, sunsets are real, obviously, they're not fake. But the idea or the notion of beautiful is a made-up concept by humans, right? So for some reason, I feel like compelled to dig into this slippage between what I know to be true and the things that I experience that defy that, like, thusness of it all, right? That, like, conflict between my inner self and the outside world, and as we'll kind of see too in work, like what that means, like formal visual qualities and stuff. To make you know, I do all that and make aesthetic objects. I make art objects for some reason. And that somehow those objects, perhaps they don't all the time, but sometimes communicate meaning to other people that is extra as a part of that, like, object. So I really quick want to kind of back up a little bit, stop talking so abstractly, and talk about, you know, I kind of position myself as working within and between the disciplines of studio art and graphic design and publishing and performance, And the types of things that I make are, very diverse and diffuse. I make drawings, I write fictional narrative, I engage in photography, and I make music and sound. I make video pieces, and I also engage in printmaking practices. So these are shots of my studio here, and you can see a range of different tools that I use. And they're probably not that much different than what you'd see in an office space. I've got a rack of paper there, I've got 2 laser toner printers. They're very specific and very different from one another. I have another, that white machine is a risograph printer. It prints through a stencil process, but with oil-based ink. So a little bit higher kind of archival quality than the laser toner stuff. I've got staplers, I've got paper cutters, bookbinding machines, chalkboards, good tools, laminating machines. So it looks and feels very kind of almost like an office space. So in addition to my personal practice, the things that I do, on my own, the work that I make by myself, I also co-run a graphic arts studio called What That, and it's through that, not only through What That, but we've been kind of experimenting with, I have struggled to find value in displaying my work in a gallery space, because the kind of interaction that happens between a viewer and that work is closed off. It's closed circuit. I never interact with that person, if only as my work is a stand-in, right? So I have found that the real valuable, I guess, platform for my work, which is more closely related to the kinds of things that I make and why I make them, are things like art book fairs, zine fests. People take a table, they set up tables, and they sell their wares. So my price points are $5, $10. I'll give it away for free, I don't care, exchange. Because when I think about, the things that I make and why I make them, and why that matters to me, I'm always kind of, and it's kind of evident in the multitude of different types of things that I make. I'm not locked in to a specific media or format, or and it's not necessarily that I used to describe it as anti-mastery, but I think what I actually mean is that I don't want to lock the ideas into a specific thing. So exploring materiality and different physical things and different formats are part of the process of me figuring out what's the best way to, or how can I start to communicate this or exchange this idea, right? And this is funny, this is a joke. I have nothing to say, but only questions to ask. Because the questions that I'm trying to ask are in pursuit of the kind of ineffable quality of what happens when, somebody sees a thing and interprets meaning from it. That isn't real. That's all made up. And it doesn't have a physical component to it other than your brain and electrons and your cultural upbringings, your lived life experience. So I'm not necessarily concerned with trying to find answers, which is why my forms are so diverse, and not only diverse and diffuse, but also made relatively cheaply and in multiples. So I'm a lot more interested in that moment of like exchange and creating the potential for a dialogue rather than for a viewer to interpret a specific stance or a position or a statement. So if you have questions, let's talk. So I want to show you a couple of kind of examples of that. This is a limited edition like screen print zine that I made for my printmaking class last spring. It's an ode to spring. And, you know, taking it back to that, like what I'm more interested in, my work, kind of the purpose that it serves for me, is to create a platform for exchange. So I made an edition of 20 of these, and everyone in my class got a copy. This is less like economical in terms of the materiality and the labor it takes to produce something like this. But that's me giving to the thing and to try and like, you know, put this stuff in places where it might not have been before if, you know, we're assigning a specific commodifiable value to it, right? So a lot of the times I'm making these objects, well, I won't say a lot of the times. I have like, you know, this is a specific kind of mode of making for me, where I need to create the potential for dialogue or to commemorate a particular kind of exchange between myself and an individual, or myself and a group of people. Another example is this series of buttons that I made. The Abyss Abides is a quote from a book that my photography class read together. And so I made these, I designed these buttons and produced them as a way to like kind of commemorate the discussions that we had, and to like remind myself and other people of the larger overarching like kind of abstract thoughts and concepts that we talked about in class or within a small community of people. So yeah, it's like a commemorative thing, I guess, like a token of something that otherwise is very like abstract and has no physical form. Ignore the, I'm right above a very loud street in Milwaukee, and we leave the windows open in spring and summer because it's hot in there. Oops. So these are pinback buttons also. These are a little bit, you know, I'm speaking the language of economic modes of production. Like these are cheap industrial materials, like pinback button, relatively low in their materials cost. But I'm also engaging in some like specialty and experimental like image making and printing methods. So aside from like the sheer labor it takes to produce them, they are cheap and they are democratic, but there's still like a level of craft that I'm applying to them that you probably wouldn't normally see with an object like this that is fairly disposable and cheap. So this is a set of 2-inch buttons that I made and I took to China when I went. I was there for a month in May and June. So I took these 2 buttons that were presented on this like special like printed cardstock as like gifts to give away to people. And it was springtime, so the text on the green ones reads, "The grass grows, the warbler flutters," which is taken from a Chinese proverb. And like warblers are generally a kind of like symbol of prosperity. Let's see, how do I stop? Okay, here we go. Okay, so I want to rewind a little bit to kind of introduce some of the really significant long-form, research-intensive, form-intensive projects that I've been kind of working on. This is a billboard that I designed, or that was commissioned by the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth. So I'm pretty, I can't remember if this was right at the end of my graduate education or kind of really quickly after. I was commissioned to design a billboard, and obviously I'm interested in that, that play between an audience and an object, and trying to, inject maybe some abstract something or ineffable something to a place that is normally fairly, highly readable, right? So this is a kind of illustration of that idea of the things between, that conflict between the self and the outside world. And so I was making work about the things that I was thinking about. This is another example of some, these are commercially printed vinyl banner materials. So I got them commercially printed. And this is me trying to figure out, what this stuff is about, really. Because I know I'm interested in these, philosophical ideas about the self and the self in relation to the outer world. But I kept putting, my finger on the thing, both visually and content-wise in this work. So it wasn't really until I started experimenting with self-portraiture that let me turn that down a little, that I kind of found a really interesting stride. Something kind of different started to happen in my work. And actually, in doing this talk, or trying to figure out what I'm going to say this time, I didn't really realize what I am doing a lot of the times in my personal practice is self-portraiture. So this is deep archives of, after grad school, I was very lucky enough to, fortunate enough to have a full-time teaching position, but also be kind of steeped in another educational environment of people who I was extremely intimidated by and who were making really cool things. So that was a really big driver. I also had my first studio, my first studio space here in Detroit. So I had, the time and the resources and the mental energy to just kind of, mess around with things and see what happened. I didn't think much of these experiments or these screen tests or whatever I think I'm calling them, but I really started to find this avenue for me to do something that wasn't directly pointing to the thing I'm trying to talk about. The other kind of work, the previous work was too direct. It was too unimaginative. Very straight information and visualization of information. So I really wanted to, through those kinds of experiments, I started to find a real foothold in self-portraiture in the sense that I'm kind of playing the roles of these I'm developing these alter egos or these characters. I think that my my upbringing in fantasy and science fiction I didn't really think that much about, but I think that, not knowing exactly what you're doing or why you're doing it or how you're doing it is okay, and to just continue doing the thing. Also, with back and forth between, some feedback loop there. But through fantasy and science fiction, I think I found a way to include myself within the work without being direct about it and my own personal experiences. Or about the things that I was thinking about directly, the within, the without, the self, the interior, whatever. So this is a printed piece of a longer form fictional narrative that I wrote about this character called Baby Girl. And she's kind of like a alien, an extraterrestrial, kind of lone wolf, I guess. Like, I never pictured her around or in society. She's just like kind of traversing this like icy landscape. And so this narrative kind of, picks up right in that kind of scene. The frozen winds picked up superfine particles of gray dust sand, carried them straight into her eyes, making it hard to keep them open. So it goes on and on about this specific kind of like journey that she's going on. And I found that I could like alter my perspective enough or my point of view enough to, through the performance of this other character's experience or being. Then I was able to like investigate like alternative versions or relationships between what is, in the world and what is not, or myself and my own experiences. I also think that there's like, there's obviously literally kind of magic in fantasy and science fiction. And I have found an interesting parallel between like, I kind of think of that, the whole activity of humans making meaning from things, specifically visual, to be magical in and of itself. So there's some like connections there that I think are really fruitful for me to explore. I'm not a science fiction writer or a fantasy writer, but I do think that like, the thought of like people like Ursula K. Le Guin or Octavia Butler, those really kind of feminist modalities of self-portraiture and kind of engaging in this, speculative thought process of what's alternative to, or how can I like think about what's happening in kind of a removed way a little bit. So the possibilities of this like really opened me up to a lot of different things. I really started like world building. I didn't ever see like the value in the little tiny things that are like scattered everywhere before, understanding that, this is a small piece of a much larger kind of puzzle, right? So this is a print suite. As Baby Girl, I wrote a series of synthesizer songs, tracks. I wanted to play a little bit of that. This is a print suite that goes with I made 100 copies of this Planescapes, which is the kind of music made from the perspective of kind of embodying or performing that character. So, pull this over here. This is our Bandcamp. You can find all the tracks for free here, or you can purchase a cassette for $10, or just tell me, I'll give you one, I don't care. So this is a reading of that text.
The summer is picked up superfine particles of gray dust and carried them straight you know, that feels sad to see it when your eyes shift focus and your brain really starts to see the individual particles of matter that make up everything, and the boundaries of holes just dissipate.
I'll kind of let this play a little bit in the background. So, finding ways of interacting with the world that I'm, building, and not just with visual stimuli, but like trying to, find the form of that world through other media. So just really quickly, I want to kind of show you a couple of, this is the work obviously that I have up in the gallery right now. So I'm kind of shifted from Baby Girl. I was like making work from her perspective for a few years. But I've recently, kind of shifted to this like bog witch character. So writing is a really important part of my practice. I write a lot. I'm very interested in language and the fluidity of like interpretation. Language is also made up. It's not real. It's a series of sounds that we make with our mouth that other people interpret meaning from. The same with like text and typography. Those are just symbols for abstract concepts. So again, that like kind of push and pull between what we know to be real or what is real and what is not, kind of finding that zone of like slippage between those two things. This is a screen print, a six color screen print that I did for Zoe Brester Pennings. She was the artist in residence in the printmaking studio last year. She organized a print exchange, which is a pretty widely used format within the printmaking world of, there are some parameters as to size or maybe a theme, and you make an image within those parameters. But then you also exchange with the other people that are involved in the print suite, or the exchange. So I, essentially gave the, 25 copies of these prints out, and I received 25 back from other artists. So that kind of like modality of exchange is the real meat of what I find valuable about making visual things. And I just want to really quick tell you a couple of ways that I'm, continuing to build this work. I last week just got the piece of writing in the Bog Witch series, and these pinhole photographs accepted into a publication called Snake Hair, and those will be published and produced in the coming months. So Snake Hair is like an independent publisher of zines. They're currently kind of based in Providence, Rhode Island. So it'll be like a more creative exchange because there'll be, two color prints in this really nicely risograph printed zine. So I don't know exactly what kind of form they will take yet, but these pinhole photographs and the text are being published in the third volume of their like occult studies zine. So I'm excited about that. And just to show you a little bit about my process too. So these photographs, like I mentioned, are pinhole photographs. I took them with a shoebox and a soda can. So this is my setup. This is me running barefoot through the woods in Petrifying Springs over there. I actually have also like a cape on, so I didn't show you that part, but yeah, you'll have to see it obtusely, I guess. And then in the bottom right-hand corner is another tool that I use a lot, which is a Holga film camera. It's a medium format film camera. It's plastic. It leaks a lot of light, so there's like lots of surprises in the results that I get. And another kind of forward-looking thing is these are some of the photographs that came from that camera. I am applying for like a residency to publish a book from these images and some of the writing and stuff and other types of images from this series. So there's legs to stuff, and just, you know, find your jam, what feels good for you, and try to pursue that to the nth degree, and things will happen. And thank you.